Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about Wii Homebrew and a massive blow to the Wii Homebrew scene. It turns out the Homebrew channel is dead. Now, if you're interested in anything we're talking about and wanted to learn more about it, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below right at the bottom. I don't hide my sources. So this is over right on the Homebrew channel's GitHub, and it has been archived. So they say right here, this repository is archived and will not accept any further contributions. Like most Wii Homebrew software, the software depends on libogc. On a side note, libogc is the C library for GameCube and Wii Homebrew. After development of the Homebrew channel had already started, we discovered that large portions of libogc were stolen directly from the Nintendo SDK, or games using the Nintendo SDK, decompiled and cleaned up. We thought that at least significant parts of libogc, such as its threading implementation, were original, and reluctantly continued to use the project while distancing ourselves from it. On top of that, because yes, there's more, it has recently been revealed that the threading OS implementation in libogc is in fact stolen from RTEMS. RTEMS stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Real-Time Executive for Multiprocessor Systems, depending on how you wanted to interpret that. The authors of libogc didn't just steal proprietary Nintendo code, but also saw it fit to steal an open-source RTOS, real-time operating system, and remove all attribution and copyright information. This goes far beyond ignorance about the copyright implications of reverse engineering Nintendo binaries, and goes straight into outright deliberate malicious code theft and copyright infringement. On top of that, because yes, there's even more, they say the current developers of libogc are not interested in tracking the issue, finding a solution, nor informing the community of the problematic copyright status of the project. When we filed an issue about it, they immediately closed it, replaced it with verbal abuse, and then completely deleted it from public view. So there you have it from the Homebrew channel's point of view, and there may be other points of view out there, and we'll have to wait and see if those arise. And as for next steps, the Homebrew channel, as you can probably guess, have laid them out pretty clearly. For this reason, we consider it impossible to legally and legitimately compile this software at this point, and cannot encourage any further development. So we're going to have to wait here if the Homebrew channel ever continues again, but based on this information and this next paragraph, it seems very unlikely. The Wii Homebrew community was all built on a top of a pile of lies and copyright infringements. And that's all thanks to Shankar, who did the stealing, and the rest of the team, who enabled it and did nothing when it was discovered. Together, the developers deceived everyone into believing their work was original. There you have it. Now, absolutely no surprise here, this is being talked about quite a bit in the emulation community, and a lot of developers are looking into it as well. For example, Joss here from Dolphin, and Endrift here from MGBA. There's a lot of back and forth on the matter. If you wanted to see it in more detail, feel free to check the link in the description below, because these people know what exactly is going on and kind of know the situation intimately. And I would say there is a lot of back and forth here that I'm just not going to get into, but it is very interesting to read. Now, as for broader impacts, because I'm assuming a lot of people are wondering about this one, and I could be wrong about this, but it does seem relatively contained to the Homebrew channel. For example, Dolphin, which deals heavily with, deals with GameCube and Wii emulation. They say here, and this is a developer from Dolphin, we don't rely on libogc, so we're fine. It's the Homebrew scene that is dealing with a rotten foundation right now. So overall here, I would say this is a massive blow to Wii Homebrew. The Wii Homebrew channel, I would say, is completely dead after this. I can't foresee this project continuing on in its current form. I can't see someone picking this up and trying to fix it. Possibly forking the code and then maybe trying to create a brand new project out of it. But at the same time, it's going to be very difficult to kind of sift through what's good and what's not. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But if you're really into Wii Homebrew, this is probably not good news for you. As for emulation, I don't really think it's impacted. I could be wrong about that one, but we're going to have to wait and see. And speaking about stuff being contained, next up here, we're talking about Windows emulation on Android with not Win Now, but Winlator. And I've got some more bad news in this video. So it's being reported that Winlator and its forks reported to be infected by a virus. They say here that it shouldn't affect your Android device, just Winlator container, so it does seem to be contained per se. But at the same time, I guess it depends on what you've got inside of Winlator that may be at risk. So the virus being reported is Floxif, and they're saying here Floxif is a family of viruses that infect Windows executable and DLL files to download and install other malware onto your computer. Now, if I had Winlator on my device, I would probably immediately clean the cache, delete the application data, uninstall Winlator, and never ever use it again. They say here it shouldn't affect your Android device, but I would say at the same time, I think it does have access to some Android system files. So even though it's containerized, I'd still be a little bit leery about the entire thing. Unfortunately, I don't know what version of Winlator this started in, so I can't recommend a safe version of Winlator or really anything like that. If you wanted to learn more about anything, again, links are in the description below right at the bottom. On a side note here, just a few days ago, someone raised an issue over on the Winlator GitHub and asked if it is a virus. And the developer behind Winlator says it's a false positive, which may not necessarily be the case. I would say there's a lot of gray area here, and this to me is just enough not to trust this emulator moving forward. But moving on, and next up we're talking about Ares, which is a multi-system emulator, and it is completely open source and one that I'm a huge fan of. It's a cross-platform open source multi-system emulator focusing on accuracy and preservation. And guess what? Ares just got a big brand new update. So at the time of filming, Ares version 144 is the latest update. And they say since version 143, 14 contributors have created 81 commits to the Ares codebase. And this update includes a bunch of improvements and bug fixes. They say this release's highlights include steady improvements to the Game Boy Advance, WonderSwan, and N64 cores. On top of that, they've improved compatibility inside sandboxed environments. There's fixes here for PlayStation, Sega Mega Drive, Genesis, CD and 32X, Sega Master System, SNES, and even more. Now, if you've never used Ares before, I recommend reading up about it and learning more about it. I think Ares is a fantastic multi-system emulator. I find it very easy to use, straightforward, and I think it works very well. And speaking about learning more about stuff, next up we're talking about Sakura Wars 2 on the Sega Saturn. And this game just received a brand new English patch. Now, this project was announced a few years ago, and it's finally released. From my understanding, it is a tactical RPG that was released back in 1998. I've never played this one before. I had to learn up about it because I didn't really know anything about the game. But if you're a fan of Sakura Wars 2, you might be a big fan of an English translation for the game so you know what's going on. And speaking about time to complete things and translations and figuring out what's going on, next up we're talking about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Switch 2. And someone here has beat the game in 7 minutes. If you are curious about this one, again, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below at the bottom. This is a really excellent speedrun in my opinion, and someone had early access to playtest one of the Switch 2s at a Switch 2 event. And they utilized that time to beat Breath of the Wild in a very short period of time. Surprisingly, or possibly unsurprisingly, the person never got kicked out of the event for beating the game so fast. In fact, it was quite the opposite. They were applauded. But let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. I would say this is a pretty cool power move from the gamer. I didn't see anyone emulate a Nintendo Switch inside the Switch 2 event. I think that would get someone kicked out. But I would say at the same time here, this is a pretty neat thing. And speaking about pretty neat things and stuff that was blurred out, if you noticed in the previous video, they did have some stuff blurred out. Anyways, we're talking about Star Wars Eclipse, and some concept art has leaked online. Now, I'm not going to show this stuff because I want to avoid spoilers for absolutely anyone who's looking forward to Star Wars Eclipse. But if you are interested in learning more about it, MP First has an article about it, and again, links are in the description below at the bottom. For those who may not be aware, Star Wars Eclipse was announced back in 2021 and may be released sometime in 2026. Maybe. We don't have a firm release date just yet, but if you are interested in learning more about some interesting character names and some interesting concept art, feel free to check out that article. And speaking about learning more about stuff and spoilers, next up we're talking about Battlefield 6. And DSO Gaming has 15 minutes of leaked gameplay from this upcoming game. So for those who may be unaware, Battlefield 6 is an upcoming Battlefield game. And there is some closed alpha testing going on right now. And unsurprisingly, a lot of footage is being shared online. I think against the agreements that people had signed to be a part of the alpha in the first place. And DSO Gaming, I think, has gathered quite a bit of information here about it. What's crazy about this is I don't even think Battlefield 6 has been announced yet, but at the same time, it's being talked about all over the place online. It's kind of like Oblivion Remastered. It's just a very badly kept secret. And speaking about games about war and secrets, but not secrets, next up here, we're talking about Steam Wargames Fest 2025. This is set to be live today, and it's going to have a bunch of sales on a bunch of different games, presumably about war. Unfortunately, at the time of filming, this is not live yet, so I'll probably talk about it tomorrow to take a look to see what games are on sale and what the good deals are and all of that. But this is something probably to put on your radar, and it may be live by the time you're watching this video. Next up, we're talking about something that's getting a lot of attention from a lot of people in the Linux community, in the gaming community, and I guess just in the PC community in general. And this is a video from Pewdiepie, one of YouTube's biggest YouTubers. It's titled, I installed Linux, so should you. I agree with the title here at the very least. Pewdiepie talks about his gripes about the bloat of Windows, the overall Linux ecosystem with a whole bunch of different distributions and even more. There's even a spot where he talks about Adobe, and he's not a big fan of that company at all. So when he went to cancel Adobe, he was hit with an unsubscription fee from Adobe. Now, I don't use Adobe. I haven't used them in a long time, and well, this kind of reinforces my decision not to use them at all. Now, I don't know about you, but overall, I love seeing stuff like this. I love seeing people dive into Linux and giving it a try and also advocating for it. I'm a huge fan of Linux. I've been using Linux as my primary operating system for, I couldn't tell you how long now. It's absolutely amazing. I personally only go into Windows when I have to, if there's a game, for example, that doesn't run on Linux because of anti-cheats or something. But that is very few and far in between, and that's really the only reason I've been going into Windows lately. Anyways, let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below if you've watched the video. And speaking about favorite things, next up here we're talking about a game that is quickly becoming one of my favorite fighting games. It's weird to admit it, I initially was very hesitant to buy this game, and it turns out I frickin' love it. Now, I'm a huge fan of fighting games, so you release a good fighting game and chances are I'm going to like it. But anyways, here, City of the Wolves is one of those games that I'm just having a really, really hard time putting down. And interestingly here, the guest characters was one of the big things that I was hesitant on buying this game for. So Cristiano Ronaldo and Salvatore Gnocchi, I'm not quite sure on how to say his last name, but I will say those are the two guest characters that are a little bit weird, and a lot of people think they're a little bit weird. And do they fit into the game? I would say yes and no. They have very unique combat styles. It's very interesting to fight them. But at the same time, they're two real-world people that have nothing to do with fighting. In fact, you could argue kind of the opposite. Anyways, here, it turns out that on the disc-based game over on PlayStation, they're not included in the base game. They're part of the day one patch. Unfortunately, I don't have the official reason as to why they're not included in the base game, but there are a couple of running theories. One, that they were late additions to the game and they didn't have time to bake them into the base game. And number two, since they are public figures, if anything ever goes sideways, they can easily remove them from the game and have no trace of them left in the game. We'll have to wait and see on any official word. I don't even know if we're ever going to get one. But at the same time here, I would say it might actually be a combination of both. But let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. I would actually lean towards the fact that they are public figures, and this is pretty easy to erase them from the game as opposed to having a game that people are hesitant to pick up if something seriously bad were to happen. And last up here, we're talking about Retrom, which is a centralized game library collection management service with a focus on emulation. Configure once, play anywhere. And Retrom just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, version 0.7.19 is the latest update. We've got some bug fixes and a brand new feature here. They say mobile responsive UI. Retrom's web client is now mobile responsive. And I'd say that's a huge win for Retrom. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. You got a healthy dose of the legendary One Fluff just the other day. She's upstairs right now in a box watching the birds. It's springtime. The birds are active, and well, so is she, watching at least. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.